Rita.
Hello, Amberleigh.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, let's just start by introducing ourselves. So, I'm
Mm-hmm.
Amberleigh. I'm from the United States and I'm in the North African and Middle Eastern Studies program. And this is my first year. So, what about you?
I am Rita. I'm a Moroccan student. So I'm Moroccan. And I am in the Masters in International Studies and Diplomacy. This is my technically first year in the Masters, but I've been at Al Akhawain for 4 years now because I've done my bachelor's here.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you have a lot of experience at AUI.
slightly.
Okay. Is there something about the International Studies program that you think is like your favorite part about it?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting journey that you go through. If I had to explain it through one sentence, it's like growing with learning. Genuinely, it happens a lot because by having the material, having the discussions with the professors, the discussions amongst ourselves, it's crazy how many insights you can get. And sometimes I take it really at heart, and I become really emotional because I'm like, how come we had this class together, me and you, about where
Mm-hmm.
we talked about knowledge production, and it
Mm-hmm.
made me re-question my whole life. How was your experience in that class?
Yeah, it was really good, and I actually really liked how we had you as an international studies major in our class because I think it really like enriched our discussion because we were talking about I guess just the North African region from like a theoretical perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and having you coming from like an international perspective was really interesting because we were talking about like the history, and then you brought in the more like macro political side. So I think that's really cool, and we can sort of combine and come together. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I feel like the both our programs are so complementary. We speak to each other without speaking to each other. We have to be together in this. But anyways, how is it being in Morocco, by the way?
Yeah, I really like it a lot. I was in Fez for a little bit before this, but I feel like being in Ifrane is a whole new experience of Morocco. And what's really amazing about my experience so far is that living in Morocco, I had sort of an immersive experience of Moroccan culture, Moroccan people. But then I got to come here and actually learn like content about Morocco, like the history and like the diplomacy, the political science, the anthropology side of it. So I got to sort of take the experience that I had and then add like actual knowledge onto it. So I think that that is also a really cool thing for other international students who come here is that they can experience living in Morocco and have an experience of another culture in another country, but also at the same time like deeply learn about like the history and yeah, just all other aspects of Morocco. So it's been very same as you said, like very enriching,
Yeah.
learning things all the time. So yeah. How about you?
Well, living in Morocco. No, yeah. I mean, Morocco is quite. I'm familiar with it. I grew up here. In different regions, though. I was not living just in one city, so I went a little bit around. So coming to Ifran was not really different from other cities, but I went on an exchange couple of maybe 1 year ago, and when I was in my exchange, I went to Finland. Here I'm wearing, just by coincidence, I'm wearing the hoodie of the university. But when I went to Finland, it was really interesting because um, it's like I couldn't understand Morocco until I went away with a little bit of more perspective. I could understand so many cultural values, so many aspects of our life as in Morocco, not necessarily as Moroccans, but just in Morocco. And there was quite a double learning experience. So I learned about Finland, but I also learned more about Morocco. And I've said it to my friends when I was there because I met so many people from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Kazakhstan, from Vietnam, and then we had all of these discussions just at a coffee shop. And when we were there, I learned so much more about especially Africa, because I learned so much about Africa than I ever did in Morocco for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So we would sit down and bring the map and just start talking about different places. And yeah, I don't know if you're having similar experiences while you're here.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting that you say that because it was very similar for me. Like when you're apart from your home, then you can be more reflexive about it and even more critical sometimes when you're outside of it looking in and also hearing what other people have heard about your country or think about your country. You think like, "Oh, is that true? How does that match up with my experience?" So you're right. It's not only learning about like yeah, when you go to another place you learn about that place, but you also learn about your own culture too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know, it's funny because this also happened when I took a class in your program. Because when I was in the North African Middle Eastern Studies seminar, well,
Mm-hmm.
when I was there, I learned a lot about MAISD, about international studies and diplomacy, because it's, I would not call it a contrast, but it is a contrast of perspective at the end of the day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much, it makes you reflect a lot, taking me back to the first point of always growing and learning and questioning so many things, and I think that's the added value of being in a liberal arts institution.
Yeah,
So yeah.
exactly. Okay, last question.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing that maybe surprised you when you first started your master's program?
Mm-hmm.
Or I could say something that maybe you wish you knew before you
Mm-hmm.
started, if that makes
Oh yeah,
sense.
uh, definitely makes sense. No, I think one thing that surprised me is is how arts relate a lot to diplomacy. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
explain myself. When I'm talking about arts, I'm talking about, for example, music. I'm talking about painting and calligraphy and all of these things. So it's like there are laws, like I don't know how to explain it, but there are
Mm-hmm.
laws in the world that
Mm-hmm.
govern the world
Mm-hmm.
and that are completely deconstructed in arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had this discussion with Isabel, who is also the choir conductor, where we are part of the choir. We had the discussion in the beginning of the semester where we were talking about how music and sounds and silences, both of them kind of make the world in a sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started always paying attention to all the sounds that are existent around me, you know, even the pace of your feet, the sound of the everything makes sense and it falls perfectly into place. And that's also a little bit when it comes to diplomacy, and it makes sense when you put history, politics, geopolitics and everything, and you put it into perspective, and then you can see the bigger picture and you're like, okay, that's why we're here today. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, and just like as an international student, starting a program about North Africa and having very little like concrete background in North Africa, I think it was a very big shock of a lot of information
Mm-hmm.
about the politics and the history of North Africa and the Middle East that I had much less background on
Mm-hmm.
for with the other Moroccan students who are already so like more knowledgeable, I feel like. So it was quite a big beginning with a lot to learn. But I think I wished I had um, just known that it comes, like, and that you can build a background, you can build a base, even if you don't know as much as other people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially for other international students, it's important to, like, give ourselves grace, be patient with
Yes.
ourselves, and be like, we are learning alongside our Moroccan classmates, and they can also help us. And my Moroccan classmates have been so helpful, like you, like my other Moroccan classmates, and like filling in the gaps for me. And now I feel like that I'm in my second semester. I feel much more confident in
Yeah.
engaging in class, and like yeah, I just have a much better background. So I think that's what I would say. So
Yeah.